as you'll remember, the theme for today is time to connect. Can we say that together? Time to connect. Oh, a little all over the place. Let's try one more time. Time to connect. That's right. I hope you've been connecting with people. If you haven't, I won't shame you yet, but you should make friends with some strangers. So in this next session, we're going to be exploring the intersection between two themes of today's event, peace and health, by discussing the health needs of women affected by conflict and displacement. Now, we know in conflict, women often lack access to resources like healthcare, including water, sanitation, and hygiene. In DC, we like our acronyms. Some call this WASH, as well as mental, maternity, and sexual and reproductive health care. So how exactly can the international community take on these challenges? Well, that's a question this panel hopes to start answering. So I'm going to welcome to stage Franscesca Donner, founder of Front Page News, and the panelists of her session. Please join me in welcoming them.
Hello, everybody. I have a little bit of a confession, and I don't normally start my panels with a confession, but I know we're not supposed to feel it anymore, but I have tremendous imposter syndrome today. My panelists are amazing individuals, people who have fled their homes, have done extraordinary things despite everything working against them. And I really wish I wasn't on the stage. I wish that I could just put them in these chairs and have them discuss together everything that's gone on in their lives. But nevertheless, I do have to ask them some questions. So we are here to talk about displaced people. We're here to talk about refugees. Over the past 10 years, the global refugee crisis, as you know, has more than doubled. Last year, the UN announced we had surpassed 100 million displaced people, which amounts to about 1.2% of the world's population. Those are absolutely staggering numbers. But this problem is not going away. We've got climate. There's wars, economic endangerment, all sorts of issues that force people to leave their homes, not by choice, but because there's no other option. And of course, when people leave their homes, we want to get the basics right. There should be food and clothing, and shelter. There needs to be safety as far as we can assure that. But those are just the basics. There are so many other issues layered in that tee up to mental well-being. How do you feel about yourself? Where is your pride gone? Who are you in this crisis that has forced you to make a decision that you never wanted to make? And I think at the end of the day, when we think about refugees, we can't look at it as a number. We look at it as individuals. Every single one is a person who made a choice that they didn't want to make. It wasn't even a choice in most instances. And so understanding that, we're going to talk to these three extraordinary women. And I'm going to ask them to tell some stories. This is a panel about stories. It's a panel about people. It is not a panel about numbers, even though we start with a number as a starting point. So I would like to welcome my first amazing woman, Rouba, Mhaissen. She's behind me on the screen. She's calling in. Thank you so much for being here. She's an economist. She's an activist. She has worked with refugees for many, many years. And welcome to this panel. I hope you can see the room. I don't know if you can see the room, but it's filled with amazing women who are supporting the work that you do. So you are a Syrian Lebanese. You have been doing this work for many, many years, and I feel like you've seen it all. But I want to actually begin with last month's earthquake, because it's something that we can all remember in our very recent memory. And while the earthquake itself may have been unpreventable, perhaps an act of God, the fallout is really magnified by years of war and government incompetence and poor infrastructure and tyrannical leadership. And I was hoping we could just begin there with that brief question. Can you talk us through some of those issues?
now, or are you going to present everyone else? Sorry. Okay.
No. You're up on your own. Forgive me. I should have explained. We're going to talk to Rouba for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to bring on the other panelists. So it's just you and me right now.
Arrangement. Okay. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry for not being able to be there. It's an issue of passports and visas and privilege. So it's, but I'm very, very honored to be able to join you online. Francesca, the earthquake. It was the cherry on top, I would say, for Syria and Syrians after so many years of war, displacement. A terrible infrastructure of healthcare systems, of homes, of families, and it was really just the thing that this population didn't need. Whether we're talking about Syrian refugees who are already displaced in Turkey, or those who were inside Syria who are initially internally displaced and now yet again displaced by the earthquake. I was a survivor of the earthquake myself. It was daunting, traumatizing. I'm one of the privileged ones whose building is still standing. Who only distant friends or relatives were directly affected by death. But I could tell you that it was a very traumatic incident, and one that definitely will have long repercussions over a long number of years for the populations that were affected.
Sorry about that. I wonder if you can sort of paint the picture a little bit further, because I think a lot about kind of the human attention span. And at the beginning, of course, all the reporters, well, those who can get there, do their best to get there. The cameras are turned on. We see the days of crisis. Then we kind of hear the somewhat celebratory stories of, babies being born in the rubble and survivors being pulled out. Awful though it is, It's sort of a slightly better take on what's just happened, and then the cameras get turned off. And I wonder if you can fill in those gaps of what's happening now on the ground, because of course it's not all disappeared, it's not all wrapped up and solved.
So the issue is that, as you said, buildings fell off, and there was a huge outcry by everyone, and this got us a lot of support at the beginning of emergency support, like blankets, food baskets, and the initial needs. But actually, the loss that we experienced is going to be a loss that will manifest itself more and more over time, because we're not talking here about only a building that fell. We're talking here about a whole social fabric, a whole community, a local economy, neighborhood ties that were formed that took 10 or 12 years to form between the refugee and those who are in the neighborhood. We're talking about children who were profoundly impacted. We're talking about people who were already in survival mode, experiencing massive loss of lives, losing loved ones, losing homes, losing jobs, losing the sentiment of belonging, even in whether we're talking about inside Syria or about Turkey. Today we have a huge amount of kids who were heavily impacted by the earthquake. We have 850,000 displaced kids, and we have 3.7 million children in general, Syrian children, who were impacted by the earthquake, on top of everything else they have been experiencing over the past years. You have tens of thousands of kids who have lost at least one of their family members, and you have a huge number. If you go to hospitals, it's insane, because there's so many life-changing amputations for these kids who have lost limbs, plus became orphans, or are sole survivors of in their families. So, and I think, since we're talking about women, I think women will bear the brunt of all of this loss, because either they are the only survivors in their family, or they are the ones who will carry the burden of caring for the children, caring for the family, caring for the community. And this is on top of everything they have been already doing post-war for the past 12 years.
Totally. And I think, one of the things is just sort of recognizing, for those who have been so terribly injured and lost, hands or feet, children, that journey to healing is just beginning, and it's just traumatizing. We've also talked a little bit about trauma, of course, those who've experienced it right in the thick of it, but also those who were not expressly there, who are also experiencing trauma. And I thought that was quite an interesting point you had made with me the other day. You want to talk about that?
I just want to say sorry if you can hear my kid's screen time. It's because it's bedtime, and he's very happy I'm on a panel because he can enjoy a little bit of screen time. So.
We love children. We accept them with open... There's a no judgment zone, you know that.
So basically, yeah. I mean, there is trauma, and then there's survival guilt, and then there is communal trauma. Survival guilt is something that I, as a Syrian, have been grappling with for 12 years, and now even more, because you start asking yourself, why did I survive and other died? It's unjust that they died, and it's unjust that I survived, and you carry this feeling with you every day, and this becomes a part of your memory and a part of your life. And I know that for sure Syrians around the world have experienced trauma as if they have been in the earthquake just by being on social media. Social media brought us so much closer together because they were watching day and night people being pulled out of the rubble, remembering, because it also awakened some of their own trauma. It awakened some of their own feelings of being under the rubble because they were being shelled, or having to flee their homes once or twice or three times because of the war, and now they have to do it all over again. It's the little things that you start thinking, why do I have these blessings and others don't? Or even, if you are a diasporic Syrian, and even those who are living there, start saying, I don't have the right to be traumatized because some people are even more traumatized than I am. And all of that takes a toll on your mental health, and all of that constitutes layers and layers of things that will take years and years of unpacking. Because here we're not, it's the little thing, Franscesca, you said about stories. And one of my friends who went through the earthquake and lost her home and her whole family, she lost more than 37 members of her family. She wrote a status on Facebook, and I was, very touched to see it. She said one of the feminist organizations was distributing hair bands after the earthquake. And she said, I was so grateful for them because I hadn't tied my hair in 3 weeks. So imagine just the little things, even the most smallest things can have a toll on you. It's all of the things that we live and we take for granted. So I think we just need structural support on all levels, because mental health is not separate from, physical health, and mental health and physical health can be separated from food, or from the need for shelter, or from the need to education. All of these things are highly interconnected. And this is why in our work at Sawa and in my activism, I always push for a more holistic approach to dealing with refugees, with anyone who's a vulnerable community, because it's about striking that balance of having all of these things at the same time.
I'm so glad you mentioned the little things, because they're some of the biggest things when taken together. And I think so much about displaced people who have to leave behind all those everyday possessions, whether it's a hairband or a favorite book or a picture or a photograph, whatever it is, all those small things add up.
I'm just saying, imagine it's the third or fourth time you have to leave everything.
Exactly. And those small things add up to an entire lifetime. And I think in the sort of entire crisis as a whole, we sort of lose sight of some of those tiny things that make you who you are and give you that humanity of being a person. And those things matter. So I want to end on, I don't want to let you go, but I have to move on to the next section. But I do want to just ask you this question, because this is something we've all been talking about with my other panelists as well. And that's really this question of how do we humanize this humanitarian crisis, and recognizing that so many people may feel far away from it, but the reality, as you yourself have said, is that we're all part of this ecosystem. So what can we do to humanize a crisis like this?
It's a delicate balance, because I have been talking about this for 12 years, and I realized that people are kind of fed up to hear about refugees. Honestly, they're like, okay, first year, second year, third year, we've shown solidarity to refugees. It's been 12 years now. What now? Even an earthquake, and we have to think about these people again. So I think at one level we have to remind each other and remind everyone that we are humans ultimately. So we all have, some of us have kids, some of us want them to be safe. Some of us want our partners, our loved ones to be safe. We want to have professional advancement. We want to feel heard and seen. So once we remember that we all have the same needs, that would help us to become closer one another. But on the other hand, we also want to remember that it's a structural issue, and we need to push governments. It's great that we can donate $5 and $10 and do all of these things, but we need to, hold those those accountable. The politicians that are happy to pay, our taxpayer money to fund weapons that would destroy cities and make refugees should be held accountable to support these refugees rather than only counting on the human to human, no matter how important. And last but not least, I always, try to remind everyone that, the world is made of interconnected circles. So if you feel like you're in Washington, D.C., and it's very hard for you to help someone in Turkey or in Syria, although you can donate, but you can even do more than that by just volunteering in your own local community, by just paying it forward wherever you are. Because I believe that if you do that, if each one of us does that in their own community, in their own setting, then the world would be a better place in general. And I always laugh and I tell people, if you want to help, because I remember receiving a call when there were genocides in Aleppo of someone in Iceland telling me, what can I do for the people of Syria? And I just told them, call your mother. If you want to help the people of Syria, just call your mom, say hello, just the little things, because otherwise it's going to all seem too much for us to handle, I think.
Thank you so much. Blessings to you, and thank you for being here with us today. All right, it is time to move on to part 2. I'd like to invite my next 2 panelists to the stage. We have Yusra Mardini, if you'd like to come up, and Olya Kudinenko. Yusra, come on. It's not scary. So Yusra is a refugee from Syria. She is an Olympic swimmer. She is amazing. And she is a UN Goodwill Ambassador and the founder of a foundation and about 100,000 other things. Here she is in the middle. And Olya is the founder of an amazing foundation out of Ukraine. I am going to try this because I'm working on my Ukrainian. It's called Tabletochki.
Almost.
Almost. It was not good. I did try. I really did, and I practiced. But okay. So she has started a foundation several years ago, actually working with pediatric cancer patients in Ukraine. Okay. So I said that I really wanted to make this panel about stories and the people that we know and work with. So we are going to begin with your story, Yusra. So I'm going to start actually with the film, The Swimmers, that was made about your life, about your escape from Syria along with your sister. If you haven't seen it, please all write down in your notebooks that you need to watch The Swimmers. It's very important. It tells, among many other things, how you and your sister leapt out of a boat of migrants that was way too heavy to stop the boat from sinking. And if the film is to be believed, it looks like you put a rope around yourself and you literally tied yourself to the boat and you swam for many hours to shore, which is really something that, well, I don't know anyone who could do that apart from you and your sister. It's incredible. There really aren't words to describe what you did. And I think about this film because there's a wonderful moment when you finally get to shore and it's not you, it's an actress, but you're touching the land and it feels like, this is the perfect moment for the Hollywood ending. She made it to shore, that's great, thank God she's alive, and now roll the credits. But that's not where the film stops. That is the middle of the film. And in a way, it's really where the journey begins, because being a refugee is not a one-day endeavor. And so I thought we could ask you to share a little bit in your words about your journey. Of course, there's sort of the dramatic Hollywood part of the boat, but there's so much more that happened afterwards. So please, in your own words.
I'm really excited to be here today. I've flown overnight for this, so I'm very excited to be here. The Swimmers, we really loved making it. We loved telling the story, and we thought it is very important to share the stories of millions of refugees, not just my story and my sister's story, and that's why we agreed to make a film. And the making of the film, the person who directed the film was a female, and she is half Welsh, half Egyptian, and I think that was something that was very, very important for us. When we told the story, we told them the most important thing for us is to be as authentic as possible, because there is we're advocates, both me and my sister. We want to change something to the better in the world, and this film is out there a very small part of it is entertainment, but as you can see, it's about a story, it's about the struggle and what we went through, and what refugees still until today go through. It's about portraying the Arabic world in a different way as well. You can see there were some scenes where we're dancing and we're having fun, even though there was a war. We were just teenagers. We didn't really exactly know what a war is until it happened in Syria. But in general, with the boat, I honestly think everyone would have done the same if they had the power to, if they were swimmers. I think when you're put in a moment in your life where it's a life or death matter, you give it your all, and that's exactly what I did. Me and my sister, we were swimmers, and we saw an opportunity where we can help people. We thought, why not? And most of the people on the boat did not know how to swim. So in general, it is a film about so many things you can relate to. You can be a mother, a coach, a sister, and so many other things. So we're really, really happy with the film, and we think that it did put the conversation back on the table of what a refugee is and what should you expect from a refugee, because it seems like everyone thinks a certain way about refugees. We've been talking in the room before about like how many people asked me, oh, you come from Syria, how do you speak English? And we're just talking, the same for her. You come from Ukraine, you knew English in Ukraine? And I was like, so that is a point where, we're working on changing, yeah.
I mean, I want to think a little bit about sort of, your journey, right? After you got to land, what happened? I want you to talk a little bit about that. But while we talk about that, I really want to sort of layer in this question of how you kept your own humanity and pride intact.
I think I was very young and naive when I did the trip, and that helped a lot, which is because I shut my emotions out. I was talking to you about it, and I told you that I couldn't cry. Like the whole trip, it was so hard for me. I was treated like a criminal at the age of 17. I didn't know why am I leaving my country. I knew obviously it's because of war and it's because of what happened, but I was like, what did I do to deserve doing this trip and leaving my country and leaving with my older sister only? My mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't there to protect us, so it was only me and her and our cousins. So in general, when we got on land, the first thing that we wanted was water, was food, because we stayed on an island in Turkey for 4 days. You have access to nothing. You're with smugglers and people you've never met in your life. So the first thing we wanted was water, was, new clothes. You get to shore, obviously, was just, I got with a t-shirt and jeans. I didn't even have shoes on. And I had this little selfie bag to put my stuff in because it was water resistance. We go to this restaurant and we ask to buy water, not to take water, to buy water. They say, no, we don't sell water to refugees. We show them the 500 euros, not 50. We take as much as you want, just give us water. They say no. But then another girl comes from, I don't know, out of nowhere. She comes and she gives us a hoodie for the little kid that was with us. He was 6 years old, and she gave me shoes. And there's actually still a picture of the shoes and so on. We gave them to a museum later on. But the point is that we were treated as criminals, but on the other hand, we were also helped by people. Along all the journey, we looked at it in a positive light as refugees. We were with 30 people crossing, and we were sharing one biscuit sometimes with 30 people. We were sharing like one small bottle of water. So in general, it was a really, really rough journey, but still when I look back, I am glad about what I learned, and it made me who I am today, and it's a part of my story now. Because a lot of people ask, did you move on from it, or do you want to move on? And I'm like, it is a part of who I am, and I don't want to move on because it made me who I am today.
Yeah. Okay. See, I told you. I did warn you. I'm going to just pause there because I want to make sure that we get to hear Olya's story as well. And it's a little bit of a different direction here, okay? But so you started out probably a decade ago, is that right? Learning about pediatric cancer. You're not a physician. You don't have medical training. You were in a corporate job. You were fairly young and naive at the time. We all start young and naive. But you could see that there was a problem with really uncomfortable and unpleasant sort of cancer treatment for children in Ukraine. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and then how you got started, and then we'll kind of go from there.
So first, when I was 19, I was so naive that I thought, okay, I'm ready to help anyone. And the only people who came up on my mind was children with cancer. And I came to the oncological department in Kiev. And I was pretty sure that my existence and coming to the department will support them already. But when I came there, it was so gray. Kids were like bald, no toys, basically no toys, or toys that we don't play anymore. Moms were almost desperate, and the whole atmosphere was so scary that I spent there an hour and I left. And I thought, okay, this is not my thing. In 4 years, I thought, okay, definitely I cannot come back to the department like to cheer up with my existence, but I can do something with my professional skills. And I was a public relations manager, and I decided to use my voice for kids with cancer. In the first month, I fundraised $1,000. Exactly. My naive, again, helped me. And I thought, oh, everyone is going to survive. I'm going to help everyone. $1,000, how much? But very soon I found out that the problem is bigger, and it took me already 12 years, and the problem is still there in Ukraine. So I've been helping kids with cancer for 12 years. We're the largest foundation in the country that helps children, that supports children with cancer, in many identities. And when the war started, we started to evacuate kids and their families, because you cannot take only one child, even if it's 17 years old child. And you cannot take a child and a mom, sick child and a mom to the other country. You have to take the whole family, because if a woman has several kids, like 2 or 3, she cannot cut her heart or cut herself once stay in country, or like leave the kids behind. So we evacuated more than 1,500 families to 16 countries. Yeah, and I can continue. So, and talking
keep going.
And talking about refugees, this is so complicated when we're talking not only about people who are healthy and young and no English. No offense, I'm not trying to make your achievements less, for sure, no. But every refugee literally has their own story. So even if we have 16 countries who accepted all those families, accepted for the treatment, these women who are organizing their new existence without almost all of them doesn't know any other languages. English is common in the world, but still many Ukrainians don't speak or don't know French, German, others. And also when you have a healthy children, you have to organize schools, help them to adapt. And this is a huge problem with these people, like survival guilt, as our first speaker told. It's also what we see in siblings, one of them who are sick and the second one is healthy. Healthy kid thinks that their mom loves them less because she all the time with the sick one who is trying to make it through the sickness, through the illness. So talking about the whole refugee situation, I don't like these roadmaps and milestones that we are measuring others' lives. So how successful are you? Have you found your job already? Do you speak other language already? Have you adapted? No, I'm just trying to figure out. I lost more than the basic security level. I lost I lost my society level. I lost my friends, all my relatives all over the world. All my things that I was doing for 12 years have fallen apart. Not fallen apart. I'm here. I'm speaking, and I'm just trying to describe what people are going through, and we are measuring them. Oh, you're already 1 year in a new country. What's your achievement? Have you received a Nobel Prize? I'm kidding. I'm a bit exaggerating. Of course, I'm a bit exaggerating, but the overall narrative is there. And when we're talking to the refugees, we need to be more patient and more kind and push them smoothly. Let's call it that.
It's a really interesting point, and being a little bit more gentle. I think that's a really interesting point, because I do feel like the first question is like, oh, how's your German? Oh, it's like, actually, German's a really hard language to learn. It's not that good. I want to just sort of reflect on a note that Rouba shared with me when we were doing our call in preparation for this panel, and she was talking. I was telling her a little bit about what you were doing with the pediatric patients, cancer patients, and I said, what happens with, what's happening with sick children where you are in the earthquake zone? And she said, oh, it's very simple. If you're a child who's getting treatment you live in Syria, you're going over to Turkey to get the treatment, and since the earthquake, you're not getting your treatment. It's an end of the story. And then we moved on to the next topic. So it's sort of. It kind of just sort of opens your eyes to the things that you have or don't have, or the luck that you're dealt or not dealt, and the children that you manage that you're working with have some extra dose of quote unquote luck in an absolutely untenable situation, which is already dealing with pediatric cancer alone is horrific. Then war on top, it's unthinkable.
I'm thinking that we don't understand that when we are healthy and successful and privileged, I'm sitting here right now, we're not thinking how we will react and act when crisis will happen in our life. So what I mean, of course, all people are different, but when I see mom in hospitals with their sick children, even if they were CEOs or they were super successful whenever they were, they cannot manage the situation. I mean, this is a whole new sphere, and you have to make lots of decisions quickly. And also, you want to be on a side with you, by the side with your child and with your loved ones. So you cannot be a CEO of your of the process of the treatment for your child and also be a supportive woman at the same time. This is like unbearable. And people don't value work that organizations do. So when I came to the US here as a refugee, I don't like to call myself refugee. I say that I'm temporary displaced person. I love this one. Because as we said, that refugees so stigmatized and they have this so strange image. Oh, you speak English, that we discussed, yeah.
Trying to change that, don't worry.
Yeah. So thank you for that. But I was here lonely. I didn't know anyone. I mean, of course I know people, but I called Vital Voices and said, oh, maybe you don't remember me, but 2 years ago I was in your program. Help me here. And I was like pushing for myself, standing up for myself. But most of the people are not that. And I'm super grateful to Vital Voices, but also we need to think about those organizations that because they are in a good place right now, they can help others. Because I was independent, smart, and whatever, I was able to help those who are struggling. And when we're talking about refugees, yes, they can show tremendous success and receive Nobel Prizes, the stories and other prizes. But they need a person who are in comfort zone right now, who will give them a hand. That's what's happening for others.
That's right, and it's okay not to win a Nobel Prize. Most of us don't. It's okay to just be a good human being working hard, doing their best, surviving, right? So, Yusra, you and I have talked a lot about this word luck. I have a big gripe with it because I feel like it's a word that's so often applied to refugees and displaced. Oh, you're so lucky, you're in America. You're so lucky, you survived. I mean, are you kidding? So talk to me a little bit about the sort of chats and frustration we've had with this word luck, or feeling that you're lucky, or when people tell you how lucky you are to be here or whatever.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a problem with societies, and I often got asked the question, oh, where is Syria? Is it in Africa? And I got so many questions about me owning an iPhone in Syria. Did I have a racing suit in Syria? Did I do that? And I got asked by children, to be honest, not like by adult mostly. And this is the thing that we have to think about, that education matters too. I wasn't educated about what a refugee is in Syria, to be honest, neither. Like, my parents did not tell me anything about it until I became one, and I hated it in the beginning, as you said. Being called a refugee, oh my God, I'm not a refugee, I'm going home. Into, like, in the beginning, I also refused to learn German, because I was like, I'm going home after a year or two. Like, I will go back to Syria, the war will be over. So in general, it is the society and what they think a refugee is. And they're forgetting that, you know, oh, she's lucky she went to the Olympics in 2015. Oh yeah, I started swimming when I was 5 years old, but I'm lucky, right? You know. My dad used to take me on the weekend to do more exercising and, you know, extra work for swimming, but I'm lucky. She knows how to speak English, she's lucky. And I'm like, no, my mom used to, you know, also push the educational side. My mom used to also on the weekends bring private teachers to teach us English and French. I forgot all my French, but English I still can speak. So in general, when I was having the conversation with you, I said, I'm lucky because I have the community that I have right now. Because I was able to navigate, as you said, to navigate and call and say, hi, I need help. Not many people can say that. Not many people were taught how to do that. And in Syria, I never, ever asked for help. And when my coach helped me in Germany, my German coach, he helped me so much. I was like, what do you want from me? Why are you helping me? Because I wasn't used to like this act of kindness. And he was like, this is how I was raised by my family. I'm helping you because I want to help you. So when I say I'm lucky, this is what I mean with lucky, that I have an amazing community right now helping me help refugees worldwide, helping me being able to have a foundation. If you ask me like today, how did you create your foundation? Thank God I have so many great people around me that helped me, you know, with whether it's the paperwork, whether it's navigating how to help refugees worldwide. But the idea of a refugee being lucky because they're in a new country, because they're starting from zero, because they're losing their family, their home, all of their belongings. I don't even have pictures of me as a child. How is that lucky? It hurts me. It has been 7 years of my life, and I think about that so often. And I was a child when I left the country as well. I left with nothing. I had to start from zero again. So imagine how hard it was for me as a 17-year-old, and how hard it was for my parents. They were 45. My mom, it took her a while until she was okay with speaking bad German for her to get back to her job. And when you get to the new country, you cannot work with the permit you have. You have to start from zero again. So I don't know how I can call that lucky. Of course, we are lucky to be in a new country, to have the opportunity to be integrated in a new society, but I don't think there is luck with you fighting for your life, to be honest.
I think you're right. So I'm going to end on this final thing, okay? And it's really short because they're showing me the stop sign. Last night at dinner, Diane von Furstenberg, who's a big supporter and Vital Voices and possibly even the part of the beating heart of it, she asked a question. She said, when did you first feel in charge? It's a bit of a difficult question to answer. Okay. So I'm not going to ask you that question. I'm going to ask you a variant of it. And the question is, what can we do for others, for displaced people or refugees, to make them feel in charge? But you have to be really quick. So quick, go.
I will say super quickly, when you meet a refugee, ask what legal help they need. I'm not talking about like lawyers, but also like give simple instructions how they can have healthcare system support or legal advice. Because when you're in a new country, you don't know the laws, you don't know how everything works. And for some people to call to the doctor, it might be a big problem. We have lots of stories, I won't tell anyone, any of them, when families call us back in Ukraine from Spain, France, where they're going through the treatment and ask how we can call the doctor, our child is something.
Okay, how do we make people feel in charge?
Very similar, be their friend. Go and have a meal with them. Open your home for them. I'm not saying, I never said, all of refugees, 100% are angels and amazing people, but isn't that the whole world? You know, there are people that want to achieve, that want to do, that want to create new lives. I know so many people that are so successful and deserve a chance. If you have an amazing business, open your business for refugees, give them jobs. Talk to them. There's one thing in Germany that they did that was amazing. They pair you up with a friend, like a Syrian refugee with a German volunteer. And that helped my mom so much. And I think that is an incredible move to do.
Thank you so much. You're amazing. Come find these women. Get them to tell you more stories. They are amazing.